Good morning. Can you hear me? You can hear
All
me.
right. Yes, we're going to just plow through. We're not even going to talk about the last 15 minutes of our lives. I have no idea. It was on my end. It's never happened before. It's never going to happen again. But of course, it happens the one day that we're looking to connect and honor your valuable time. And I'm pleased to be able to talk to you, my friend Ihor Verys, the 2024 Barkley Marathons champion. How does that sound?
Gary, come on. I always have time for you. You can call me in the middle of the night. I'll be available for a Zoom call for you. How does it sound? Well, still sounds weird, still thinking in, I guess. Still waking up, looking at my hands, making sure the cuts are still there, and I didn't just make it up.
I forgot to ask. I wanted to lead with how's the weather down your way? I mean, if I walked out in front of my house and put a basketball in the street and rolled it, it would reach your front door in under 90 seconds.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the weather is looking good. Hopefully it's good on your end too.
I've heard it's supposed to get better as the day goes on. But going back to your comment there, just in terms of like how you're feeling right now. So this is Friday morning. You flew home on Monday, correct? So what time did you arrive back in Chilliwack?
Yeah, I was here at 1 a.m.
You got back at 1 a.m.
Yeah, really, really late. So I had to work on Tuesday. So I had to get up at 6 a.m. So didn't get much sleep the very first
Actually,
night.
this is with the time change, does this not put us at exactly right now, 60 minutes past the finish of the race last week?
Uh,
No, 12 hours,
2:17 is when it ended.
2:17 our time local. It's 9:17 right now. Close enough, math. How has the last week been for you physically? I mean, you look fantastic from the neck up.
Thank you. Yeah, I got some fat back, so my face is not as chiseled as it was right after the race. Yeah, getting lots of sleeps, except for today, had to wake up extra early for your interview. So thanks, Gary, for that. Other than that,
Sorry about that alarm. That harsh 8:30 a.m. alarm.
yeah, I mean it's a long weekend, Good Friday, so people are sleeping in. Yeah, eating good foods, getting some weight back, feeling great. The only thing, just have toes a little bit numb from all the downhill pounding, but happened before, so it might take a few weeks for complete recovery. But other than that, feeling great. Cuts are actually healing, and all the wounds are disappearing, and it's kind of bittersweet because eventually they're gonna go, and I won't be able to brag with them.
The cuts are kind of badges of honor, to be honest. They don't feel nearly as bad as they look. You get to kind of wear them with pride when you're coming in off of each lap at the Barkley, right?
That's true.
A couple of questions that sparks for me. You mentioned the sleep that you've been getting since the race. So at the race at Barkley last week, I was crewing for John Kelly. A lot of people thought I was crewing for yourself. I would have loved to have crewed for you. John presented me the opportunity. Also, a lot of people will not know just yet that there was a social media clampdown. So we were technically not allowed to comment from within camp while we were there. So I couldn't even clarify that I was crewing for John and not Ihor. You ran the full 58 hours and 40 some odd minutes. Do you know your exact time? 43,
44, 59.
44, 59. Like it. I love it. You didn't sleep at all. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
And going into this, did you anticipate not being able to sleep at all? Was that a part of the strategy and the plan from the start, the beginning?
Yeah. Jody actually asked me if I might sleep, if I consider sleep, and I told him that most likely I won't sleep. I won't need any sleep going over 2 nights unless something really bad happens and I'm looking terrible, then we might consider. Otherwise, no, definitely no sleep strategy.
So John Kelly was actually the only person at Barkley this year that slept. We got him in the back of a truck for 20 minutes. And you mentioned Jody. We'll get to Jody, your crew person, in a little bit. But what is it like to go through 60 hours without sleep? Now, I have to preface that and add that obviously you went 107 hours at Biggs last year with very little sleep. Is it truly for you a point where you are unaffected by being awake for 60 straight hours while moving?
I mean, we all get affected. We're all humans, so I did feel sleepy
Are
even.
you human, Ihor? Are
Yes.
you? We're all
Well,
kind of wondering.
did you see blood on my legs, after all those briars? I do have
Yeah, but
blood.
it wasn't red.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I do get sleepy, and the second night it was getting worse. But I feel like I've done it so many times now, and I was anticipating that, and when I'm facing it, I know how to deal with it. You know how Courtney, for instance, says I'm expecting that pain cave, and when I arrive to the pain cave, I know how to live in it. So same with sleep deprivation. When it comes, I know how to deal with it. I know how to go with it. So you do get sleepy, but nothing that would kind of force me to, take a nap or stop. At backyard, we went a little bit further, a couple more nights. At that point,
A
my
little
brain was,
bit.
yeah, my brain was getting confused, which didn't happen here. Barkley, I knew exactly where I was. I knew exactly what to do, so and I felt like being a virgin and going on the loop 5 on my own completely. I wanted to make sure I have as much time as possible, and therefore I didn't want to spend any extra minute, sleeping. I just want to make sure I have enough time to navigate on my own, and that's another reason why I chose that no sleep strategy going into Barkley.
Well, it seemed like it's getting to be the only strategy. It's very rare these days for people to have any opportunity to sleep just based on how the race has evolved quite a bit over the last handful of years, certainly from the first time that I set foot in Frozen Head. One of those changes that's very obvious is that runners no longer really go to their campsites. Everybody's crewed for right at the gate. Now, you mentioned Jody, who was your crew person. So I want you to talk about Jody a little bit, but then also talk about where you kind of gleaned your information for how you were going to go about your successful run at the Barkley, and knowing, I guess, in advance that you weren't going to see your campsite for the full 60 hours.
Yeah, so I met Jody at National Backyard Championships back in 2022. He was on the team. We kind of hit it off right there. I really liked his vibe, and he liked mine, and we were kind of joking about Barkley and stuff. And I said that maybe if I run 100 hours, you would tell me more about Barkley, and we kind of joked about it, and well, we forgot about it for a while, but then Jody brought it up back, and yeah, from there, we kind of eventually, when I got into Barkley, Jody was very helpful, helping me, trying to teach me navigation skills. Just being from afar, he would literally just send me a snapshot of my backyard where I would need to go. And I would try to use my compass and just the map of Chilliwack backyard just to navigate and find those spots. And I literally, Mount Tom, I bushwhacked every single piece of Mount Tom, and
Did you not
ended
find the
up
dog that was missing for 4 months in there?
I ended up on private property there so many times. That's why, like, I keep all of that private on Strava, obviously, because that would raise a lot of questions. Like, what are you doing there? There's literally no trails there. Same with the Chilliwack Community Forest and Gloria. Like, I was there everywhere, off trail, trying to make sure I can follow the bearing, to make sure I know how to identify ridges, spurs, this and that. So navigational part was, that's my weak point. Obviously, I can run, I can climb, but can I navigate? So that's why I had to put in a lot of work for that. And Jody was helpful with that a lot for sure. Yeah, and when we were in the camp, I didn't know that we would have to go to the camp. I didn't know it was a thing because it's our first time there. So I thought every year we're being crewed right next to the gate, and I thought it's a common thing. And I mean, since I'm not planning on sleeping, the weather was great, so we didn't need any cover or anything like that. And I want to make sure we don't waste time at all. And at some point, I felt like our breaks were super long, but then I looked at the interval times, and I guess they were not too bad.
One of the biggest things I found challenging there, and why I think the new philosophy, which has to happen, of crewing at the gate and not going to the campsites, is that there's so much physical duress that you're under the entire time, but you can train for that. That's what we prepare for. The hardest thing I found was the mental duress, just the fact that you have to be on for 60 straight hours. If you have a lapse, a small mistake can become a big mistake, and it's very easy, as I know all too well, to watch things disappear in 30 to 40 minutes by simply making a single error that can compound. So for me, coming back into camp in my era of doing it, that was your break. That was your few minutes to kind of allow your mind to rest and exist outside of that stressful space for a little bit. For you, it felt like for everybody now, you don't get that time away as much. Were you able in your rapid interlupal transitions to find some peace and solitude and allow your mind to shut down for just a few minutes?
No peace and solitude at Barkley. No, like every time, as I was in that chair, I was already thinking about the next book and what I'm gonna do and how I'm gonna approach it, and especially before loop 5. I know my feet were, but it actually helped with the physical pain because my feet were really, really bad by loop 5, and every step was painful. Even Laz didn't believe in me. Jody was kind of doubting too. He was like, "Oh my gosh, he's looking really bad," and pretty much nobody
I
believed in
think
me.
Laz should know by now. It's all subjective. I heard people messaging that John looked horrible, and his family came to me with like, "Is he okay?" And I went, "He looks fantastic. He's the best I've ever seen him look on 5. Yes, he looks like death reincarnated, but that's subjective to where we are. Nobody doubted your ability to push through that, Ihor."
Thanks, Gary. Yeah, but what I was just saying is that keeping your mind engaged with the goal of navigating and finding books helped me to kind of separate myself from the physical pain that I had with my feet because I was so focused on, okay, let's go get this book. Let's find this. Let's locate this ridge. Let's locate this book. By the time I found it, and then I would like remind myself, oh, my feet are hurting, but hey, whatever. Let's just keep going to the next book. And I know it is mentally taxing, and you're always focused. You don't have that break, but I found it helpful actually to in my attempts to deal with physical pain. To have your brain focused on something else.
It makes total sense, actually. Yeah, just being able to almost exist outside your body. So with the lack of sleep, there were no hallucination issues throughout. Is that right?
Yeah, I feel like I always tell everyone I'm so boring. I never hallucinate or I never see. I mean, obviously you can see some rock or think it's a person or think it's a snake just because you're tired, but no real cool hallucinating stories. When I get really tired, um, I do get confused. I forget where I am and what I do, which would happen at Backyard. But we didn't get to this point at Barkley, so unfortunately, no fun nights for me. And yeah, it's pretty sad I didn't hallucinate.
I'm so lucky I get to start having fun sometimes as early as 36 hours in, but definitely by 48 hours. Yeah. Like I'm not as mentally strong as you are, it seems.
Uh,
Um, I want to go back just a step there to you talking about the pain that you were experiencing in your feet and the fact that you had a mental focus on the books that allowed you to kind of exist outside your body. Um, with the pain that you were experiencing at the Barkley on 5, is that a unique pain for you in terms of was that more painful than where you had gotten during bigs? I mean, you're a unique talent in the fact that you've gone the second furthest ever at a backyard and you finished the Barkley on the first attempt. So how did those two races kind of stack up for you in terms of the physical challenge? Let's start there. And your feet taking a pounding, was that different for you than you had at bigs?
yeah, it's a different issue here. I mean, going back to both, I guess I'm just a fan of Laz's formats, and I like
He's got other races too, Ihor.
I'm a huge fan of the self-destruction concept that he's putting out there for people. So I don't know if he knows about it, but yeah, I know that. I know for sure. Um, See, backyard, two different formats. I was even asked which one is harder, which one is easier, and I was thinking about it. It's really hard to give the answer. Like, if you look at me, it seems like backyard is harder because I look like crap at the end, right? I was barely walking. I wasn't in my head. And at backyard and at Barkley, I look much better. But well, don't forget how much we climb there, what we go through here. So exertion level is definitely completely different than Barkley's. Backyard is The thing with backyard, you can troubleshoot every single hour. So if something goes or starts going a little bit south, some hotspot is being developed, you can fix it in an hour or even less, right? So if you start developing some blisters, you can pop it, you can, dry up your feet, put new socks on. Barkley, you can't do that. So you're out there 12, 14 hours at a time, other than loop number one. And so you can't really change your socks, or you could, but it takes a minute and you're lost behind the leaders. And I didn't want to let it happen. Just want to make sure I stick around with leaders all the time. And so my feet, I guess they're stuffed, baby skin or whatever. And
You're too
and
young
then
to have hardened feet just yet.
I guess so. Yeah, gotta come up with some strategy, better strategy.
Yeah.
Than
Wait till
put.
you're in your 40s.
Yeah, so they started developing trench feet because of all the wet condition. I mean, we didn't really get feet wet, but it's just sweat and being close there in the shoe all the time.
And
And by
just
the time,
constant pounding on your feet, up and
exactly,
down, right?
yeah. So by the end of loop three, I developed these trench feet that you saw and you mentioned it's what it was. I didn't even know the name of it. To me, it's just blister in the
Oh, it's like a fissure down between your toes right here, like a chasm, and it just every step, oh, it is misery. But as we both know, you can still push through that.
Yeah, so I developed the same condition at Hurt a couple months earlier, but there one loop I ran with it probably two loops, which was like 4 or 5 hours, so obviously not the same. So I knew that I could push through that pain, but can I do it for 12, 13 hours going for loop five on my own navigating? Well, yeah, that was a question, but one step at a time, one book at a time, and before I knew it, it was over. And yeah, going back to backyard, see, at least at Barkley, there is a finish, right? The backyard, there's no such finish, but you don't engage your brain at the backyard. All you do just follow the markings for follow the loop. So your brain is resting all the time, but physically you push yourself way further. You go through way much longer time of sleep deprivation and pounding on your feet. So I guess if you take in that aspect, backyard could be potentially harder and it's more taxing on your body. Because even my recovery after backyard, I had to take another month because I was wrecked. Barkley, like I feel great to be honest. Just my toes are a bit numb, but I'm forcing myself to rest at least 10 days, and then
Someone wanted to know. I had a couple of questions on Twitter. There was, but that pings off of this. Okay, Robin Alay, what's the post-race toenail situation?
I was asked that
And
before.
I think it was, can you get through the Barkley without losing all your toenails? Because I did the last time.
Okay, so here's the trick, Robert. You have to do the race before Barkley, which I did. It was Hurt, which was a terrible race, which was a great race, but a terrible race for your feet. And I ended up losing 10 toenails right after Hurt. So
Just
right
boom,
before
gone. Get them out of the way.
all gone. And by the time of Barkley came around, I had zero toenails, and it's the best feeling ever, not to have them because
What a messed up sport this is.
yeah, I was able to fly down, and had no issues with toenails. And it's now I see why some athletes actually surgically remove them, because
I'm glad you said that. So I wanted to give a shout out to Marshall Ulrich, who's a name from way back, an endurance legend from couple of decades ago, surgically had his toenails removed. I remember hearing that when I started expedition racing, and it was the craziest, freakiest thing I'd ever heard. And then you lose your toenails a bunch, and you're like, I might be a genius.
yeah, exactly.
So no toenails from from Hurt into Barkley. So do you feel like that was the secret to success?
Yes, totally. That's the only reason why I finished Barkley.
Totally.
That's right. You know,
I'm curious about, oh, go.
no, go ahead, Gary.
I'm curious about the mental space that you have to go to in these races. I mean, that's always been the big attractant. I feel like the reason so many people keep going back to the Barkley, and the reason it's so hard for people to understand from the outside, is what it demands of this when you get to lap 5. One of the great things with the Barkley marathons is that you almost always have to be faster on your 5th lap than your 4th lap, to finish the race, and you know it's impossible, but you go out and do it anyways. And the space that you have to find yourself in mentally is unlike anything I've ever experienced at any other race, including expedition races. And I'm curious, my question for you then being, you know, the mental space that you had to go to in Barkley, was it unique and new to you, or was it simply building off of you being that haven't been there before in previous events?
Uh, Good question, Gary. Yeah, I mean, obviously there was some experience, building up to the race, but I've never been in that uh, mental space before. Because Barclay is unique. You got to think with your head, so you can't just turn off your head and then focus on one step at a time. You have to actually focus on finding the books, and I've never been in that space before. It is kind of scary. I was a bit nervous going, especially in the Loop 5 on my own, but keeping that brain engaged and be focusing on navigation and finding books helped me to push through, to forget about pain. I tend to think about it like shelving the pain. So if I do have some issue with my body, I put that pain on the shelf and I tell myself I'll grab it once I finish. And it helps me to get through the race. And when I finish, I take it off the shelf and I embrace that pain after. And that's kind of the mindset that I usually try to have during the race. And Barkley definitely pushed it to completely different level. And I was really afraid that my brain would be so foggy that I wouldn't be able to think and to navigate, to know where I was.
That
But
was the only concern I had for you out on 5. I knew you were physically strong enough. I was really curious how you were going to do with the nav.
yeah, everyone was concerned. Like Jody was concerned too. Like you're in your own now, so I mean,
I'm going to let you know, Jody was a nervous bag of bones the entire 60 hours. I've never seen a crew person that just was rattling, vibrating the whole time. I don't think he relaxed, and I think he might have slept less than you.
Oh, he probably did. Yeah, he's just such a nice person that he was so concerned for me that sometimes I felt that he was racing, not I was. And that's amazing, you know. And yeah, well, that's the thing. On Loop 4, when we were still in a group of three with Demo and John, I I was fairly comfortable with everywhere we were, or so I thought, at least in counterclockwise direction. So going into the fifth loop, I thought that I could do it. But again, you're on your own for your first year, and you can't really memorize everything. I probably did memorize a lot of it. I spent, just like I was told, I think Jared said that first. You have to turn on the record button on loop number 1 and never turn it off until the very end. And you shouldn't just look straight forward. You have to look back just to make sure you memorize all the features and little landmarks when you're doing the counterclockwise direction. And yeah, and again, I told myself I was very nervous going out in loop 5, but pain helped me kind of, to forget about it. And I just told myself, you know what,
That's
let's do
normal.
one book at a time. And when I found every single one of these books, I was celebrating myself. I was kind of pumping myself up, like, hey, good job. You're an amazing navigator. Can you believe what you did on your own? And then that basically gave me that confidence. Keep going, keep going. And when I hit the new section and the hardest section to navigate, and I hit those books like spot on. I just trusted compass. I just trusted my map. And when I would hit it like right there, like I would go down or go up, and I would hit it like within 5-10 meters. I'm like, holy
Amazing.
shoot! Like what?
You could say
Like I'm
shit.
good. Like, am I doing it or am I
There's
supposed to?
nothing more rewarding than that, right? Just getting the book. Like, yeah, that energy, that adrenaline.
Yeah, or the fact that you know where you are. When I started going down the checkmate, you hit the Flume of Doom, and I'm like, oh shit, I know where I am. We did this, and uh, yeah, and it helped me to propel. And when I hit the last book from there, it's just a little, a short, a relatively short trail section. I knew I was done. I knew I was done under 59 hours. So yeah, I was like,
I
oh,
have to say, you were actually 14 minutes slower than I thought you would be. I was like, Ihor's going to be here
Sorry.
at 58 and a half. I know that. And then you didn't show up. And I was like, oh, am I wrong on this? And you were 14 minutes after that.
Sorry, I let you down, Gary.
That's right. Yeah. Better next time, I think.
Yeah, well,
Speaking of, okay. Yeah, go.
yeah, I was just gonna say that it's if I were a more experienced navigator, or maybe if I were a veteran, I would trust myself more. But when I was, say, taking the line and I was just following the bearing, I just want to make sure that I don't get off track probably every 4 minutes because I don't know, maybe I was getting foggy too. You get sleep deprived. You want to make sure you're not veering off course. So I would like pretty much, I don't know, if I could have a device that holds compass right in front of me somewhere here, so I didn't have to pull it out every second minute, that would be great. But that's what ate a lot of time, just to make sure that I am navigating properly.
Which is incredibly mature thing to understand for that race, just how, again, a small mistake can rapidly become a big mistake, can rapidly end your race. So the fact that you always knew where you were and were really focusing on that just talks to your preparation and how much you did put into this in advance of getting to the Barkley. So let's talk about that a little bit. Your journey into the Barkley marathons. So a year ago, you were on the wait list. And I only found that out after the fact. You after you found out you weren't getting in, went and smashed a 100-miler in Washington State named Badger 100-miler, which is like the exact opposite style of course that the Barkley is. But you still managed to take your Barkley training and apply it to a relatively flat, fast 100-miler. But the question being, or something I want to express is, I don't ever want it to be confused for the fact that I had anything to do with your success. While I'm a huge fan of yours and supporter of yours, you really did go about this entirely on your own and sourced your own information and solutions and ways into the race. So from your first application to getting into the race, what has been your Barkley journey for kind of learning about the race and where your desire and fire to partake in it was born from?
Well, first off, you do have a lot to do with me getting into Barkley because you've been my inspiration, ever since I learned about Barkley from you. So
So it's
ever
my fault that you're the first Canadian finisher? I'm
that's your
actually,
fault.
you know what? I am stoked that we have a Canadian finisher. I want to make sure that is out there and that it's you, a good person, a friend of mine, someone who lives down the street. Like, yeah, and I feel so thankful that I was able to see it firsthand, but keep going.
Yeah, so never say that. You did influence me in a big way. I always say that, Gary Robbins has always been one of my biggest inspirations. Now look, you're interviewing me, so isn't it, that's even
Yes,
bigger
we're
than
on
Barkley.
opposite sides of the peak of endurance and fitness.
And
You're right at the top
I
and
don't
I'm
know.
right down here.
No,
I'm
no,
I'm
don't say
happy. I'm happy with the journey I've
that.
had, and I'm more than happy to see guys like you stepping up right now.
And many people know this story, but they don't. But I ended up in Chilliwack because of your influence too, right? That's a funny story, and I told you many times.
So a
You probably
question
thought
I
I was a freak.
had, well, here's okay, so I want you to take this and make it so talk about your journey from Ukraine to Canada, Manitoba to British Columbia.
Okay, sure, yeah. So
And then before you moved to Canada, what were you doing at home in Ukraine?
yeah, I was just a student. I got
Just
bachelor's degree. Yeah, yeah. I graduated from the university. Uh, was supposed to be a diplomatic envoy, ambassador of my country in any other country. Was studying languages. However, didn't want to represent the government we had. It was an anti-people government at that point. And unfortunately, as a diplomatic envoy, you have to be the face of the government. And I didn't want to be a face of the government. I wanted to be a face of people, but you can't do that when you're a diplomatic envoy. So, anyways, I just wanted to change the direction of my life a bit different and try maybe expand my studies outside of Ukraine. And this opportunity of studying Canada came around, and I came to Manitoba. I knew nothing about Manitoba, but the college that I applied for, super nice people. They replied to me, and I'm just some international student far away, and they were very kind to me. And I came to Manitoba. Nobody told me it's -40 there in winter time, so I should have brought.
the good news is at -40, it doesn't matter if you're talking Celsius or Fahrenheit, it's the same.
That's right. Yeah, but and became a student there and started running probably a year after I came to Canada as a mental health tool. I'm just, young kid trying to navigate my life here in a new country with new tradition. Everything is new, new language. So running became kind of my solace where I can clear off my head and, get out there and forget about my stresses or and get myself ready for the next day. So it was just a mental health tool. But then I started running further and further, signing up for a few half marathons, marathons, and eventually, when the COVID happened, I transitioned to trails and was introduced to longer distances like 50 Ks and FKTs with 100 plus K. And then I watched this super cool movie on YouTube. I don't know if you heard of it. It's called The Big Chill. And then this guy there is doing 100-miler in this amazing place called Chilliwack River Valley. I still remember every single peak that you climb, every single shot that you made in that video, and it just, it got embedded in my head, all those shots, and I was like, I really want to be there. I really want to live there. It's just, to me, it seemed the best place in the world.
It's pretty damn good.
I've never seen anything like that. I haven't traveled much, granted, but still, I was like, oh my gosh, where Garrett lives, it's just a paradise. Like, how do I want to be there? And I had this thought in
So the
my head.
funniest thing about all of that is Chilliwack was known as a gas station stop on the highway on the way east. And I've been here 5 years, and I got asked the question as recently as 3 weeks ago. How's Chilliwack? Why did you move there? It was this kind of hidden gem, and people like Ihor are helping to put it on the map.
Yeah, and so I had this thought in my head that I want to be there. I want to be there, but I don't want to just move there with no job. I know it's BC. I know it's not Vancouver, but it's still BC. It's more expensive than Manitoba. So I just want to make sure I have some means to move there first. And then I get this phone call from one of the biggest insurance brokerages out there, and they offer me a job. And when they said Chilliwack, I was like, "Did you say Chilliwack?" And I'm like, where do I sign? Like, because I should have asked about the salary first. I forgot about that aspect. I just heard Chilliwack. I said, send me the contract I'm signing right now. And I put in 2 weeks notice the same day I got that phone call. And
Is such serendipity to just have it be this community, this city, this town that was the place they offered you on the West Coast. And I want so that's a nice segue into this. Like, oh, I've got 7 minutes left because I don't have a pro account, so I could talk to you for hours, but we don't want to have a 2 hour interview. We got 7 minutes. This is the next question I got for you. You are not just an exceptional individual as a person and as an athlete, but as a community ambassador. You run with everybody. You have no ego. It is incredible to see. Can you speak a little bit to the community of people that you've been able to network or sorry, foster in Chilliwack since you've moved here, and the group that you get to call friends and training partners?
yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gary. I'm just very lucky to be here. I came here first, started running on my own, and I tried to connect with people, and people would know just you. And I was like, well, I'm not gonna knock on Gary's door and be a creep, right? That's wrong. But day by day, people found me. Marina discovered me, and she showed me around. She introduced me to more people here and
Marina
there.
was your crew person at Biggs, for those that don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and eventually I learned about this ginormous community, not only in Chilliwack but in Fraser Valley in general. These people are so amazing. They're always supportive. There's so many talented athletes here. If you think any distance in ultra or or trail running in general, you can find a really talented person here. And this community, everyone is just so supportive, no matter how fast, how good you are, how slow you are. We're here, for you, for your journey. And I've felt so much love coming from this community. And that's another reason why I was pushing so hard at all these events, including Backyard and Barkley, because I knew I'm not just here running for myself, I'm running for
We
my
all get
community.
to live vicariously through you. That's the special part about, and I'm included in that, Ihor. I didn't get to finish the Barkley and I won't be returning. And there's all kinds of reasons behind that. And I'm good. Like, I'm really happy with where I am in my life. And I have a lot to be thankful for what I got to extract from my trips to Frozen Head. And this trip was the icing on the cake. I can't believe what I got. I saw you, John, and Jared, three of my very good friends, all finished and got to see the first ever female finish at the race. So the reason we are all fans of yours is because you are just a genuinely amazing person, and we get to live vicariously through you, which is really special. So living vicariously through you in the years to come, what you've knocked them out of the park. You're kind of the big crazy goals. What is next? Not immediately, but what's on your maybe short and long-term wish list here?
Well, I heard CMTR is putting on the 100 miler. Is that a thing?
Eventually, hopefully, not this year. Yeah, we got close, but had a few speed bumps. Maybe next year in the Chilliwack River Valley,
I
and
know.
you would be my absolute favorite for that one.
I would love to race at home. That would be great. I know that you can do amazing job. Yeah, I'll just, you know what, Gary, nothing. I want to remain myself. I want to, stay humble and grounded. I want to travel across our beautiful provinces and explore more, see more RDs like yourself, and hopefully keep pushing and growing, developing sport in Canada. I keep repeating it many times, but unfortunately, Canada is always in the shade. When Canadian races are very often in the shade, we don't get as much attention or sponsorship. So I hope that
Don't
will
I know
change.
it?
I hope
Yep.
that will change because I think Canada deserves to be on the ultra running map, and I'll do my best, to help out the local race directors
Oh,
to
well, you're
to
doing
raise
a huge assist with all of that. You just touched on another one. So sponsorship. So how much money have you made out of ultra running in the last handful of years?
it. Heaps, thinking about getting a second rental property here.
What give talk to that a little bit, just the sponsorship side of things. I mean, I think there's a grand misconception on the outside that you get a result, sponsorship follows, the phones are ringing off the hook. It's not the case. It's so multifaceted and tiered, and social media plays a big role in all of that. But who has been helping you out, and what kind of assistance have you been getting so far?
Yeah, as far as it depends on what you mean by sponsorship. Is getting money, like a check? Yeah, it's not happening. I
I
don't
know
think.
you haven't gotten any money. It's hard to come. And honestly, as a Canadian, our sponsorship pool is a little bit thinner than the American pool as well, and that's just the reality of life. So, what brands have been helping you out with maybe gear,
Uh,
I guess?
well, I've been supported by our local store, Garrison Running, and the manager, Jess Vink there. She did fantastic job reaching out to all these reps, especially Hoka rep, and they've been helping me out a lot. And I did receive some, shoes and some clothes from companies here there, but nothing big, to be honest. Nothing.
There
Uh,
is money to be had, and you deserve it as much as anybody. And I'm really hoping to assist in shedding a bit more of a light on the fact that you're technically a bit of a free agent here, and yeah, it would be a really intuitive, intelligent signing by any company for all the obvious reasons here.
Thanks, Gary. I don't know even if we have any pro ultra runner in Canada who is
No,
supported.
I know there are a couple of people that get some money. The most I know of offhand is maybe like $15,000, which is fantastic as assistance,
Yeah,
but it's not like you're not working when you have that
right.
income.
Well,
But yeah,
if
it's not easy to come by.
if you even think about it, John Kelly and Jared Campbell, they still have to work, and they're outstanding athletes, the best in their class, and they still don't have that support, full support from sponsors where they can just quit their jobs and focus on running, right? And I hope it will change. There's not much sponsorship in our sport at the moment. Maybe it's because the coverage is not as good as, let's say, road running, marathoning, but it's changing. It's changing. You see, there's a lot
Very
more
much.
videos and footage and drone footage. So hopefully it will drive sponsors to our sport. It will not only for the athletes, but for the race directors like yourself, where there will be some sponsors' money to promote our sport and take it to another level.
We had someone recently that looked at stuff and was very surprised to learn we're an entirely gate-driven company, pretty much. We're going to run out of time. I hate that we're going to run out of time. I'm going to interview John Kelly. What's one question you would like me to ask John Kelly about the Barkley or anything?
Ask him about Google clusters. Did he like them or not? Did they help?
We will definitely be talking about John's selection of fuel for the Barkley. Very different than yours, from what I had gathered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ihor, you're amazing. This is going to cut out a second. Thank you for freeing up the time this morning. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Congratulations, man. We are all so pumped and